Okay, so we're going to practice. We're going to just kind of do some review here, and then we'll jump into a little bit more advanced topics. So first off, step number one is always to what? Annualize the salary. And I think it's a good idea as much as possible, you know, to label what you're doing so you can go back and see your steps, right? And see, oh gosh, this is how it flushes out. Step number two, if I'm paid biweekly, I'm paid 26 times a year, so I want to go figure out what my regular biweekly paycheck is, right? So I'm going to take my annual gross and I'm going to divide by 26 paychecks, right? And every paycheck, my gross is $1308.92. Step three. Step three is to calculate your hourly rate. How am I going to do that? Yeah, always go back up and start with your annual and divide by the number of hours in the work year. For most of us, that's 40 times 52, right? 40 hours a week, 52 weeks, 2,080. But it might not be. Nurses might work 312, so that's 36 hours a week. I work something like 1,380 is what our contract is for. So it totally depends, right? So you can't just throw in 2,080 is my point. You got to think about it. So 34,032 divided by 52, times 40, right? 2,080. So my hourly wage is $16.36, right? Regular wage. Number four, what's my overtime rate? Yeah. $24.54 an hour. Number five, we pull the whole thing together, which is my regular gross wage plus, what did I say in the 6.5 hours of overtime? Times my overtime rate, right? Plus 1308.92. Gross paycheck, 1468.43. Okay, on the slides, if you need to practice a couple more of these, I think examples 1, 2, and 3 are all of this ilk. So you can go work through one now. Okay, now let's try a situation where my work week is less than 40 hours. My required work week. Let's say I work 7 hours a day. So what happens then in my company, how many hours a week am I contracted to work for then? If I work 7-hour days. 5, sorry. 35. 7 times 5.
Numbers are hard.
Creative math. 7 times 5, 35, right? So technically, if you quote me a salary for a 35-hour week, if I work 37 hours, what's going to happen, or what should happen? I should get 2 hours of overtime, but am I getting overtime at my regular rate or a time and a half? Regular. Because I'm not at 40 yet, am I? So my overtime is over 35 hours, but between 35 and 40 hours, my overtime is really my regular rate, isn't it? So I get my salary plus a couple hours at my, if I was using this example, $16.36. But if I go over 40, I've got to be paid time and a half. You with me? So let's try an example like that. Let's say that I'm quoted a monthly salary of $22.63. Oh, I don't know why it does that. I think my hand throws it off. That makes it confused. But I don't know how to get around that because I have to attach that to the pen to get it under there.
If you figure it out, though, I'm sure everybody would be happy.
Yeah.
It seems like every one of my classes has tons of trouble with that.
Well, I'm not feeling too bad about it other than it does that in and out. Okay, and then let's say that I'm commissioned for a 34-hour work week. Okay? And we pay semi-monthly in my company. And in one pay period, in other words, one semi-monthly chunk,
Maybe it's
34-hour work week.
about 65 per.
Well, no, that was just my example.
Oh, okay.
In one semi-monthly pay scale or pay time, I worked 18 hours of overtime. 12 of those were between 34 to 40 hours in the week.
So under 40
You with me? Yeah.
Under 40 hours.
Yeah. So I'm quoted a salary of $22.63 a month. I'm exempt. No, I'm non-exempt. I have a 34-hour work week, and my company pays semi-monthly, and in one time card, I work 18 hours of overtime in my company. But of that 18 hours, 12 of them was between 34 and 40 hours. Okay, let's walk through this one together, and then I'll give you one to work on your own. Okay, so step one, you know how to do that. So go ahead and do step one. All right, that's my annual salary. What's step two? Figure out my regular semi-monthly paycheck.
Monthly by 2.
No. Always go back up to the annual and divide by the number of pay periods in the year. $1,131.50 is my regular check, right? Okay, step three. How am I going to figure out how much my hourly rate is? Go back to annual, yeah? Times what? Yeah. I'm not commissioned for 2,080 hours. It's some other number, isn't it? $1,768 hours, right? Okay, so 15.36 an hour. So 52 weeks, 34 hours. Your denominator is always the number of hours in the work year, right? Nothing new in step 4. How do I find my overtime rate? And overtime, I guess we need to clarify that now. Overtime over 40 hours, right? $23.04. Now, I'm going to give you a second. There's 3 parts to the formula to calculate the gross paycheck, isn't there? Regular gross, there's a certain number of hours at the regular rate, and then there's a certain number of hours at the overtime rate. So write the whole algebraic formula out, please. There's 3 components. And then we'll get to the part, and then there's a couple more of these to practice if you'd like to on the PowerPoint. One paycheck. Yeah, one paycheck in which she worked 18 hours of overtime, but 12 of those were between 34 and 40 hours. 12 of the hours of overtime. So she worked for a 40-hour-a-week company. She'd only have 6 hours of overtime, right? Okay, so first off, I get the regular gross from number 2. Donna, what goes in this first set of parentheses? What times what? Yeah. I get paid an additional 12 hours at my regular rate, right? $15.36. And then Katie, what goes in that last set of parens? Yes, ma'am. So the total of 6 and 12 is my 18 hours, right? So does anybody have that number? Yes, please.
1,454 and 6 cents.
Do I have a second on that? Okay. As long as I get 2 people with the numbers, I'm not gonna. So if you're somebody that's not like naturally adept at numbers, take the parens and write the numbers down, and then put your calculator and add it back. Okay. There's 2 more of these on PowerPoint. Practice them if you need to. Right? I try and do 1 of each, and then I provide that less. I provide more of them for you to do, on your own if you feel like you need a little bit of reinforcement. All right, let's see what the next topic is. So example 4 is what we just did. Example 3 and 4 are what we just did. All right, let's try, and then this one is just a regular one. Okay, now what happens if you're non-exempt? And remind me one more time, a non-exempt employee is not exempt from what?
A non-exempt employee is not exempt
From the overtime provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act. And I'm not exempt, I'm exempt if I'm one of those laundry lists, right? Executive, administrator, professional, creative professional, computer professional, et cetera, et cetera, right? Otherwise, everybody else is by nature non-exempt. So in this example, I'm non-exempt, I'm salaried, but I have a fluctuating work week. So what happens with overtime there? Here's what the FLSA tells us. You can forge an agreement like that. Like if I'm in the printing business, 1 week, there's not much going on. We're going to have a 20-hour work week. Next week, there's a 50-hour work week. Okay, normally you wouldn't be able to get out from underneath paying classic overtime like we just calculated, but you can forge an agreement that says, I've got a fluctuating work week. Then you've got to calculate overtime by dividing your normal salary by the hours worked, and then you pay a premium. So let's talk about the difference between what a premium and a rate is, and just make sure that you understand this. So a premium, go ahead.
So I know my husband last night, he's a business owner of a construction company, and he has a salaried sales guy. And I was thinking, do you pay him overtime if he ends up coming in more?
Outside sales are,
It's not out, he's paid his salary, and the percentage of what he gets in sales is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about he works like, say he worked a 48-hour work week, and then the next week he worked, 30-hour work, because sometimes he works less.
so here's the scoop. If you're non-exempt and you work more hours in 1 week and less in the next, unless you forged a fluctuating work week agreement, can you comp out time for 1 week into the next? No.
He's like, yeah,
No.
sometimes he
No.
knows, sometimes he's doing more, and sometimes he's doing less, it's just what he is.
So just make sure you understand the difference between an overtime rate and an overtime premium. An overtime rate is 1.5 times your regular rate. If I'm asking you to do the premium, it's just the 0.5 tack on. So you got to be really cognizant of the difference in language here, okay? One's 1.5 and one's 0.5. So, and then alternatively with a fluctuating work week, you can divide by 40 hours and you're going to get actually a different pay rate than each week. Most employers are going to do the first way. And now lastly, if you've got a very, very heavily fluctuating work week, you can do something called a BELO plan. I really don't see that, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Okay, this is important, and you do see this a lot. Piece rate is a method of paying that compensates your employees by unit of production, or unit of inspection, or unit of distribution, right? Or the number of miles you drive, or the number of lineal feet of line that you excavate. I mean, you're getting paid per something, right? That's piece rate. And you can do that, but obviously you've got to be making minimum wage and then paying overtime on it. So if you pay somebody piece rate, there's 2 ways to calculate their pay. And the results are not actually going to be the exact same. There's like method A and method B. But they're going to be really close. So when we work them, you want to look at your numbers for reasonableness and say, hey, are they pretty close? Okay. One method, we're going to go through some numbers here. One method uses this idea that I was just talking about an overtime premium. The second method basically looks at two different rates. So everything that I make or produce in the first 40 hours, I'm paid at my standard rate. And anything that I make or produce over 40 hours, I'm paid at my standard piece rate times 1.5. So the two methods are going to yield something pretty close, but not exactly the same. All right, let's try an example. So here I've got somebody who is inspecting crates of crawfish. Right? They work down in the bayou. Actually, probably don't have much work right now because the bayou's all washed out. But let's say that's what I do. And for each crate of crawfish that I inspect, I get paid 12 cents. And last week, I worked 47.25 hours, and I inspected 4,812 crates of crawfish. 600 of those crates was after I hit my 40 hours. So obviously the other 4,212 were in the first 40 hours. So let's calculate it using doing both methods. And I'll walk you through these and then I'll give you one to try your own. Step one. Okay, so method A. Method A says, first step, calculate in total how much new stuff I got paid for all 4,812 units. So if he gets 12 cents a unit and he inspected 4,812, what did he get in total? That's your first calculation. $577.44. Okay. Step one. This on step two is where students usually mess up. Step two says, tell me how much he makes per hour based upon that 577.44. What am I going to divide by? You've got to divide by the full 47.25 hours. So the next question is, does he make a minimum wage? So figure out what his hourly rate is, and he worked 47.25 hours to make that, didn't he? Making $12.22 an hour. All good. Definitely making minimum wage, right? How am I going to figure out what I pay him for that last 7.25 hours in addition to his 577? Uh, 5.5. I'm sorry? I think multiply what by what? Not 1.5, because he's already making $12.22 an hour for the whole 47 hours. See that? So I just need to tack on the what? The premium. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Because he's already, this $12.22 an hour, he's paid for the full 47.25 hours. So I'm already paying him, right, the $12.22. I need to tack on what? The 0.5. So figure out the overtime premium. Yep. So that's the 0.5, right? Now tie it all together on his paycheck in number 4. Step 4. Does that look right? Okay. The second method, so that's method A.
Okay, sorry, okay.
Go ahead.
611 is the premium, which
Mhm.
is 12.22 times 0.5, right?
And he works 7.25 hours of overtime, so he gets that on top of his regular paycheck.
But what's this whole thing, 600 after 40 hours? So you always use 600 of the inspections after 40
That doesn't matter in method A. In method B, it does matter.
So
In method B, and Preston, the homework for chapter 2 is due on Monday.
Oh, on Monday?
Yeah, homework for chapter 2 is due on Monday. Okay. Method B says he gets paid one rate for the first 4,212 and a different rate. What's my second set of parentheses going to say?
Yeah.
18 cents, right?
Okay, I have a question with method A. So we figured out his hourly rate, but
Yeah.
you don't multiply that by anything, there's some part of the law that says it's wrong.
No, in the bottom, he gets paid 1.5 times.
No, I'm talking about number 4 method A. Like, I understand where the 577.24 comes from.
Okay.
And then we multiply by the premium of 2 rates.
Yeah.
Why do we not multiply the premium by 12?
I'm sorry, Katie, why don't we multiply what?
Like 12.22. The first 40 hours, we're not putting in the equation.
So in the first method, we're just equalizing what he makes over the entire period of the time he works. So every hour he worked, he made 12.22. And for the hours over 40, he got that tack on premium.
Okay, so why do we not put the 40 hours in the book?
It's in the 577.44.
So this guy's basically gonna have a different hourly rate probably every week or every month.
Sure, every pay period, you bet. So yeah, based on production. So how much did he make in method B?
613.44.
Okay, which, if I'm looking at this for reasonableness, I'm like, yep, those numbers look pretty darn close. That sounds reasonable to me.
I think I watched
Mhm.
600 something.
So he inspected 4,812 units, right? 600 of those were in the extra hours, so therefore 4,812 minus 600, the first 4,212 units were inspected in the first 40 hours.
So you got the 4,212 from deducting
Yeah.
the initially doing that.
Yeah. So, and this walks you through it. All right, let's try one. You guys try this one on your own. So again, I'm inspecting wind chimes. And I get 8 cents for every one I inspect. Racine inspected 6,897 units in a 43.5-hour work week. Of those total, 423 of those were inspected in overtime. In other words, the last 3.5 hours. But it's for gross pay using both methods. And again, please write all the formulas down. So, in the first one, how much does Rosine make in the full week? 551.76.
By what?
551.76, right? So,
Yeah.
The second step is crucial. What do you divide by to get her hourly rate? All the hours she worked. So she's making $12.68 an hour, right? And her overtime premium for tack-on is 0.5 of that. Does this make sense, Katie? So she's getting her regular, yeah, okay. Because you were struggling with that one on the.
No, I just didn't understand the bottom of it. Loading at the hours, but
Right, so it's in that 551, right? So for all her hours, she gets 551.76, and then she gets that 0.5 for everything over 40 hours, right? In the second one, she makes 8 cents for the number of units she produced in the first 40 hours, they're expected.
You take that from my 8 times difference in hours, which is
Yeah.
6,454.
Right, not the difference in the hours, the difference in the number of units, yeah. And then the last 423, she's paid at 10. That's her rate. Okay. In the last minute, I guess now. Be aware, and you'll have some of these in your homework for Monday. I can pay you however I want, like incentivizing you, right? If you sell X thousands of dollars of carpet, I will pay you, $92 a roll. If you sell over 10,000 yards, I'm going to pay you, $98 a roll. I can do whatever I want to incent your production, but it's got to be non-discriminatory and it's got to meet minimum wage. I can't show you how to do these because it's based upon whatever matrix I give you, right? But it's just really a matter of reading a table and putting it in the different parentheses, right? So I'm paid in increments. So 18 cents for these units, 24 for the next set, 36 for after that. Commission, I can pay you on commission. I can pay you flat commission. I can pay you commission plus base. I can do whatever we agree to as long as you're on minimum wage. The exception, what's an outside salesperson versus an inside salesperson? I think an outside salesperson is somebody that reps more than one line, right? So like if I sell life insurance, I don't just sell one underwriter, do I? I sell life insurance can be written by 30 different underwriters. I'm outside sales. If I'm inside sales, I don't sell all tractors, I just sell John Deere, right? So if I'm an outside salesperson, I am specifically exempted from the Fair Labor Standards Act. In other words, I'm basically self-employed, aren't I? Okay, why don't you work this one on your own, this commission, and then go back and do those PowerPoints on the ones that we didn't go over together, that we practiced one, but like examples, I think 3 and 4 and 5 that were in here. And then your homework's due on Monday. We'll start on chapter 3 on Monday. And we're not looking at your first exam until the 4th of October. Just to give you a heads up.
So the training assignments, I'm going to do a hard copy in.
Hard copies.
And they're not done on that like program on the